Welcome to the Eerie Experience, where we present you one of the most haunting stories. Before moving in, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Story 1 by Alice. When I was a kid, I often found myself home alone because my mom worked as a nurse and had a demanding schedule. One night stands out in my memory as a suspenseful and dangerous experience. It happened on a weekend when my mom was working the night shift. I had a girl named Molly over, and we watched movies together. After a while, Molly had to go home because her parents didn't like her being out late. So, I was left alone in the house. I was in my room upstairs, and I could hear noises coming from the backyard. Someone dragged a chair on the deck, and it startled me. I looked out of my window and saw a person sitting on the chair. I called out Molly's name, thinking it was her, but it wasn't. The person looked up at me, but I didn't recognize them in the dark. I got scared and stepped away from the window, hiding. I texted my friends to see if it was one of them playing a prank, but they all said no and didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't think my friends would come to my house like that anyway. I mustered up the courage to look out the window again, and the person was still there, looking up at me. It was a man, and he saw me. I quickly moved away from the window, afraid that he would hear any movement I made. I wanted him to think I wasn't in my room anymore. I waited for a while in the darkness, scared to even turn on my phone because I didn't want him to see the light. I finally decided to check the window again, hoping he would be gone. But he was still there, staring up at me. Feeling terrified, I tried to be brave and asked him what he wanted. He started laughing silently, his shoulders shaking. It was a strange and unsettling laugh, almost like he was wheezing. I asked him to go away and went back to hiding in my room. I didn't leave my room again that night until my mom came home. I told her what happened, and she was angry that I didn't call the police. Looking back, I realized it was a foolish decision on my part. I closed my window and curtains, thankful that our doors were locked. It could have been a dangerous situation if they weren't. I was only 14 and not strong enough to defend myself. That night, I stayed in my room, scared and helpless, until my mom arrived. I shared the terrifying experience with her, and she shifted from anger to concern for my safety. It was a lesson learned about the importance of taking action and seeking help in such situations. This night remains deeply ingrained in my memory, a reminder of the vulnerability of being young and the presence of unknown and unsettling forces that can lurk in the darkness. Story 2 by Josh. I once booked an Airbnb in Arizona for a job interview. It was far from home, so I decided to make a short trip out of it. The Airbnb I chose was cheaper than hotels and had a nice view of the desert in the backyard. I brought my laptop to work during the day and stayed there for 3 days. On the night before my interview, I was practicing interview questions in the living room. Suddenly, there was a tap at the window. I looked, but it was dark outside, and I couldn't see anyone. I thought it might be a bug hitting the window. The next day, I had my interview and explored the town. At night, while watching Netflix, I heard another tap at the window. This time, I was disturbed. I checked the windows and the front door, but found no one. I went outside and heard a click in the distance. It felt like someone was hiding and watching me. I called out and saw someone standing in the darkness of the desert. I warned them that I would call the police, and they quickly walked away. I wasn't sure who it was, but I suspected it might be the Airbnb owner. The following night, as I was watching Breaking Bad on my laptop before bed, I heard a muffled click from the closet. Startled, I immediately ran to my car and called 911. I waited outside while the police arrived. We searched the small house, but found no one. I decided to leave and stay at a nearby hotel that night. I contacted Airbnb and the host, but I only got a partial refund. I still wonder if it was the host who had access to the house. There were no signs of forced entry, which made me think they might have had a key. However, it could have also been a stranger who snuck in at the right time. Story 3. Anonymous. I'm 23 years old and still live with my parents. One day, when they were both out, I was playing basketball in the front yard. As I glanced up at an upstairs window, I saw a random woman staring at me. She quickly disappeared when she noticed I saw her. Feeling uneasy, I went inside and searched every room in the house, but she was nowhere to be found. I even checked the basement, though I doubted she could be hiding there. Opening the closet door, I braced myself for a frightening surprise, but all I found were coats and hangers. Confused and scared, I went back to the main floor and screamed, demanding the intruder to leave. My neighbor heard my screams and came over to check on me. We searched the house together, but the woman had vanished. It seemed she had escaped through the unlocked back door while I fetched the basketball. After my neighbor left, I locked all the doors and called my parents, sharing the crazy story. They asked me to make sure nothing was stolen, so I checked everything, relieved to find nothing missing. That night, I had a hard time falling asleep due to my anxious thoughts. Just as I was starting to drift away, I heard strange noises from the other side of the room. I turned and saw the woman crawling out from under my bed. Terrified, I screamed louder than ever before. Acting on instinct, I tackled her to the floor and grabbed her throat, demanding to know who she was. At that moment, the doorbell rang, and my neighbor arrived again. I dragged the struggling woman to the front door where my neighbor helped me restrain her. I called the police, and while we waited, the woman screamed and cursed at us, behaving like a troubled meth addict. When the police arrived, one of the officers recognized the woman. They had dealt with her multiple times before. Her name conveniently turned out to be Karen. It was satisfying to watch her being taken away in the police car. I expressed my gratitude to my neighbor for his quick assistance. That night, although still a bit frightened, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I couldn't fully explain why, but the ordeal had come to an end, and justice had been served. If you have any paranormal or horror stories to share, you can send it to our Gmail link attached in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for this channel to watch more interesting stories like these.